Our main character, Ghislain Peridium, is infamous for being a wild, uncontrollable swordmaster. He's often locked away in his room, supposedly out of his mind. And on top of it all, he's known as the worthless, eldest son of Count Peridium. With titles like those, you'd expect just another pampered noble brat. But that's far from the truth. At least, not anymore. His opponent is starting to figure that out. The hard way. This bearded guy facing Ghislain can't believe what's happening. He's getting thoroughly beaten by someone he thought was just useless scum. Meanwhile, Ghislain is calm and collected, cool as ever during the fight. Internally, he's actually satisfied, because all the money he dumped into setting up this trap is finally showing results. With a smirk, Ghislain asks the bearded man if he's enjoying the unexpected twist. That only pisses the guy off more, because it feels like Ghislain knew exactly how things were going to play out. And guess what? Ghislain proudly admits it. He didn't just anticipate the enemy's plan. He knew everything from the start. The number of soldiers, the identity of his spies who provided reinforcements. He had it all figured out. The bearded man is stunned. He starts yelling, furious, that his secret weapon has been exposed by someone he once dismissed as worthless. But Ghislain isn't in the mood for his whining. He shuts him up with a solid kick to the face, making it clear this guy can scream all he wants. But no matter how many fights break out, Ghislain is confident he'll come out on top every single time. So, how is he so sure of winning? Simple, because he knows everything. Let's rewind for a second. Almost a year ago, in the kingdom of Lithuania, near the Peridium estate, Ghislain Peridium woke up in pure shock. He was alive, but he shouldn't have been. The last thing he remembered was being in the middle of a truly hopeless battle, squaring off against one of the continent's elite, the 7 noble knights, a man named Ajuin, the very one who was destined to kill him. Now, Ghislain wasn't just some random nobody either. He used to be one of the top 7 mercenary kings on the continent, feared and respected everywhere, under the name Ghislain Peridium. Before ending Ghislain's life, Ajuin mocked him, saying he never expected to see the trash of the fallen Peridium family again. From what Ajuin knew, Ghislain had vanished after his sister's death, and his name had become nothing but a fading memory. That completely threw Ghislain off. He demanded to know how Ajuin knew so much about his past. Ajuin told him he'd been tracking him for a long time, because he was one of the people involved in the destruction of the Peridium family. He had worked alongside the Delphine household to bring them down. Hearing one of them made Ghislain freeze. That meant the Delphine household hadn't acted alone. There were others who played a role in his family's ruin. And now, one of those people was standing right in front of him. His hatred and thirst for revenge surged like never before, and then Ajuin cut his head clean off. But strangely, Ghislain later woke up whole, unharmed, and very much alive. Not only was his body intact with no sign of injury, but he even looked noticeably younger. He looks around, clearly confused about what's going on. Just then, someone calls out to him, addressing him as young master, and urging him to come out. The man is actually a soldier from the Peridium household, Ricardo. But before Ricardo can say much, he finds a sharp sword aimed at his neck. As Ghislain demands answers immediately, Ricardo, clueless about the situation, agrees to answer whatever his master asks, though he can't understand why a sword is necessary for conversation. Even Ghislain is completely blindsided by Ricardo's reaction. After all, wasn't this guy supposed to be an enemy? Ricardo shakes himself free from Ghislain's grasp and reminds him that he had just collapsed from exhaustion. Earlier, after throwing a massive fit, he'd been stressing himself sick over how to lead a raid on the orcs. Naturally, this explanation makes absolutely no sense to Ghislain. Then Ricardo tells him to grab his things and head out, because everyone's waiting for them outside. Ghislain, utterly bewildered, asks where they're even going. Ricardo informs him they're heading to the Peridium estate. Hearing his family name sends a shockwave through Ghislain. As far as he knows, that estate was destroyed years ago. But as they finally reach a hill overlooking it, he gets a perfectly clear view, and it's unmistakably the Peridium estate. fully intact. He had once witnessed it burn to the ground, and now here it stands again. Ricardo, a bit confused, mumbles to himself, wondering why his master keeps calling his own home, as if it had fallen. If the Count ever hears that, there could be serious trouble. Trying to make sense of it all, Ghislain pinches his cheek, hoping this is all just a dream. But the pain is real. That's when it hits him. He's younger now, the estate is untouched, and everything seems to have reverted to how it once was, which means he's traveled back in time. Back then, his younger self was deeply resentful toward his family. That immaturity, rooted in deep feelings of inferiority, caused endless trouble for everyone. Eventually, people in the household started avoiding him, and, unable to handle the criticism, he ran away. Years later, he became a mercenary, survived countless brutal battles, honed his skills, and earned a name for himself. He returned to Peridium, hoping to make amends, but by then, the estate had already been reduced to ashes. He had lost everything, but now somehow it's all back. Everyone he cared about is still alive. He's completely overwhelmed, realizing he's been given another chance. But there's no time to celebrate. From what Ricardo just mentioned, they're on their way to raid the orcs. Ghislain remembers this day all too well. It was the day nearly everyone in his squad perished. In his past life, that is. He had joined the orc raid squad to prove his worth. The report back then mentioned only 3 measly orcs. So Ghislain, with 0 command experience, thought it'd be easy peasy. But when they arrived, they were ambushed by over 20 orcs. Because of his recklessness and overwhelming pride, most of the squad was brutally wiped out. Right now, our MC feels pretty confident this situation is manageable, mainly because these orcs don't seem to have any real tactics. But the real issue is whether his soldiers will actually trust him, considering they all think he's just some worthless loser. Unfortunately, he doesn't even get a moment to prepare because, out of nowhere, a watchtower gets utterly decimated. As a massive horde of orcs comes charging in, Ghislain is absolutely stunned by this sudden, brutal attack. He hadn't expected these creatures to strike so quickly. The orcs are tearing through the soldiers like it's nothing, and each one is powerful, enough to wipe out multiple foot soldiers. Single-handedly, Raid Squad Commander Schofield jumps into the fray and shouts for everyone to form a defensive line. But honestly, it looks like no formation or tactic is going to stop these savage beasts who are slaughtering people nonstop. Even Schofield is convinced they're doomed. Getting ambushed like this, with 0 preparation, is just brutal, and to make things worse, there are way more of these monsters than anyone expected. With the way things are spiraling, Schofield is sure they're all going to die. Then suddenly, someone shouts at the commander when Schofield turns around. He sees a massive beast about to crush him with its axe. He barely has time to react. That's when Ghislain lunges in, yanks Schofield out of harm's way, and slices straight through the monster's hand. Like it's just a cucumber. Everyone is left speechless. Seriously, how did Ghislain pull that off so effortlessly? Especially when he's supposed to be the useless one. The beast collapses as Ghislain grumbles in irritation, fuming about still not being able to use mana. He strides right up to the commander and boldly demands command over the troops. But Scovin refuses him flat out. He doesn't think a so-called worthless brat should be leading in such a dire moment. He even dares to ask Ghislain if he thinks this is just some kind of game, even if Ghislain is the young master. Scovin declares he can't just hand over authority, granted by the Lord so easily. But Ghislain had already predicted this, that no one would believe in him, and now he's getting seriously pissed. But just then, another monster charges at them, and Scovin steps in, thinking Ghislain is too green to handle this. But Ghislain decides it's time to shut these idiots up and show them what he can really do. He hurls his sword at the beast with insane speed. The commander immediately starts yelling at him for disobeying his orders, but shuts right up when he sees the orc drop dead from a single, devastating hit. Clearly, the sword struck with terrifying precision. The commander just stands there, looking like he's suffering from a serious case of constipation. Meanwhile, Ghislain stares him down and asks if he even knows the most crucial thing in battle. And of course, the commander doesn't. because clearly he's the real useless one here. Gislin shifts his focus toward the frightened soldiers and reminds Scovin that there's no way to win a battle when fear has already taken over the troops. The first step should be gaining momentum. With that, our guy dashes forward once more, yanks his sword from the monster's skull, and launches himself into the air. He lands squarely on another orc and drives his blade straight into its head. Scovin can hardly believe his eyes. Meanwhile, our boy boldly challenges the monsters, taunting them to come at him if they want to die. Predictably, these brainless beasts charge at him, and he slices through them. With the precision and speed of a true ninja, he's absolutely wired. On an energy rush, he's tearing apart every single one that dares cross his path. His movements, his reflexes, everything is unfolding at such incredible speed that Schofield is left completely frozen, staring in total disbelief. Even as a mana user, he can't possibly keep up, so he can't even begin to fathom how his skinny young master is pulling this off. Scovin then notices that, despite the obvious signs of fatigue, our guy is still expertly evading attacks with the bare minimum of motion, and his sword strikes land perfectly on the enemy's weak points, like a master swordsman who can't even use mana, or maybe even someone far beyond that level. But our MC isn't done. He keeps provoking the monsters, mocking them for being nothing like the fearsome warrior race they're rumored to be. The other soldiers are just as stunned, watching as every single ORC charges toward the young master. They turn to their commander, waiting for orders. But the coward doesn't even come close to showing the kind of guts our boy has. He's still trying to process the fact that the young master deliberately charged into a swarm of orcs just to draw their attention. He doesn't get why. He's now running straight toward the edge of a cliff. But then it soon clicks. Gislin plans to lure the orcs right off the cliff. Acting fast, Scovin orders his troops to raise their shield wall and prepare to back him up. Meanwhile, the orcs are right behind our guy, chasing him down. Our MC trusts that Scovin, being the capable commander he is, will catch on to the plan. As much as he'd love to hack every one of these orcs to pieces himself, he just doesn't have the stamina. But this plan isn't bad either. At the cliff's edge, the orcs realize too late that soldiers are waiting behind them. In defensive formation, without hesitation, our guy leaps off the cliff, signaling Scovin to follow through. The soldiers charge in and slam into the monsters, shoving them off the cliff to their brutal deaths below. The risky move works, and every last orc is eliminated, though drained the soldiers pull through. Scovin is still frozen in shock when he spots our MC, clinging to the cliffside, his sword jammed into the rock to hold himself up. Even in this situation, there's no fear on his face, only a confident smirk aimed directly at Scovin. For a second, the big mustache commander is thrown off, but then a proud smile spreads across his face. He quickly reaches out a hand, but it falls just short. The grip on the sword loosens, and just like that, the boy starts to fall, leaving everyone stunned by the sudden twist. Meanwhile, Gislin begins slipping into unconsciousness, drifting into a dreamlike state, where he hears his sister's voice and sees scattered fragments of memories involving her. He doesn't quite understand what's happening, until suddenly she grabs his hand, and just like that he's pulled out of the dream. He jolts awake in bed, confused and shocked that he's even alive. As he tries to sit up, a wave of pain rushes through his entire body, making even the smallest movements agonizing. Every inch of him aches. A harsh reminder of how far he pushed himself, but in a strange way it reassures him that he survived. At that moment, a maid enters the room with a relieved smile. It takes him just a second to realize it's Belinda. She's clearly both happy and upset, scolding him for all the stress he caused. But Gislin doesn't hesitate. He throws his arms around her, hugging her tightly. She's totally confused by the sudden affection, unaware that to him, seeing her again after so long is overwhelming. You see, Belinda had been his personal maid since childhood. Through all the chaos he caused, she was the one who stuck by his side. But after his family's downfall, she vanished and he never thought they'd meet again. Now with her in front of him, He feels like he has to be honest. So he drops a bombshell. He tells her a catastrophe is heading straight for Perry DM and admits that he actually died and came back to life. Naturally, Belinda brushes it off. She agrees the orcs nearly killed him, but she refuses to believe his bizarre tale. He tries to explain further, but she just scolds him for being reckless, realizing she won't believe him, no matter what he gives up. Belinda then shifts the topic, reminding him of the upcoming festival, something he would have missed if he had stayed injured. That catches Ghislain off guard. Seeing his blank expression, she reminds him that Lady Elena has been looking forward to going with him. It's the perfect opportunity for the siblings to reconnect suddenly. Ghislain remembers this festival in his past life. He never got to enjoy it. It was around this time that something traumatic had happened. So when he asks how much time is left, she tells him it's next week. He has a week to prepare. But this isn't just about a festival. In his previous life, this exact day marked a tragedy that haunted him forever. On the day of the festival, his sister Elena was supposed to die. Right on cue, Elena walks into the room. Ghislain instantly pulls her into a hug, catching her completely off guard. Blushing, she accuses him of playing some weird prank. She doesn't realize how real his feelings are. He's simply overwhelmed to see her alive. But since he won't let go, Elena ends up forcefully pulling herself away, leaving his weakened body swaying under the pressure. Turns out she's got some serious strength. From her reaction, it's clear the two siblings don't exactly have a warm relationship. Elena bluntly says she's only here because Belinda asked her to come. Apparently, there's some past grudge. Elena still remembers the time he insulted her. Ghislain, clueless at first, eventually realizes that, he wasn't exactly a great brother in his past life. Honestly, he was kind of an asshole. So he does something shocking. He apologizes. Both Belinda and Elena are stunned. Ghislain admitting fault, that's unheard of. They joke that maybe he got hit in the head too hard by the orcs and knocked something loose. But Ghislain quickly shuts that down, saying he really did get them right. Then another wave of pain hits, and he doubles over. Elena doesn't miss the chance to poke fun, clearly enjoying the moment. It's obvious who came out worse in that fight. But Ghislain doesn't mind, even with her sarcastic comments. He's just glad to see them, being exactly the way he remembers. There's something comforting about it. And in that moment, he can't help but think, why did the Olden waste so much time on things that didn't matter? During the upcoming festival preparations, Ghislain had turned down Elena's offer to attend together, using the raid squad incident as an excuse. That ended up being the last time he ever saw her. Not long after, Elena and her bodyguards were found brutally torn apart. Ghislain still regrets not being there for her when it mattered most. Suddenly, a knock interrupts the moment. Two knights appear at the door. Elena's bodyguards. The one with dark brown hair is Jamal, and standing behind him is Philip. Elena questions their presence, since they were told to wait outside. One of them apologizes and explains that the servants have requested her to supervise the festival preparations. This catches Ghislain off guard. He doesn't understand why Elena needs to be involved in that. Belinda looks disappointed at his reaction and reminds him of the worker shortage in Perry DM. Even someone like Elena has to pitch in. It's only now that Ghislain realizes this, since he never really paid attention to such things before. But now that he's here, he offers to help. His little sister is visibly shocked, and both girls start to wonder if he might have actually been knocked in the head or something soon. They reach the festival site, where everyone's busy setting up their stalls. But when they hear that Ghislain wants to help, a strange unease creeps in. His sister keeps trying to push him away, saying the best way he can help is by not getting in the way or causing trouble. But Ghislain refuses to leave her alone. After all, Elena's body was discovered near the slums, far from the festival location. Someone must have either lured her out or dragged her there. He wants to make sure nothing like that happens again. And for that, he needs to fully understand the castle's layout. Just then a knight runs in. Calling for Ghislain, it's old man Fergus. Out of breath, but clearly emotional. He starts crying, admitting how scared he was. After hearing about the ORC attack, Gislin's sister jumps in too, pointing out how oddly he's been acting lately. She thinks it might be best if Fergus just takes him back. Seeing no other choice, Gislin agrees, but requests to be taken to the abandoned training field in the castle instead. Fergus, puzzled, asks why Gislin simply says he wants to train, though unsure what the young master is planning. The old man doesn't press him further and leads him to the training hall. As Gislin steps inside, the first thing that strikes him is how well kept the training hall is. Far better than he ever imagined. It's the perfect spot for him to train, and the equipment way more advanced than anything he ever came across during his mercenary days. The old man explains that they've kept the place in shape, just in case Gislin ever wanted to return. He'd always believed Gislin would eventually overcome whatever inner battle he was fighting. That genuine concern makes Gislin pause. He never realized how much the old man had been trying to support him. It hits him hard. He feels a wave of guilt for not noticing it sooner. Quietly, he pats the old man's shoulder and says something, half joking, half serious. Dying sucks, so he might as well try living a while longer. The old man, as usual, is baffled hearing him talk, like he's already crossed over to the afterlife. But Gislin just shrugs and admits it. He did die and came back. Not that the old man buys any of it. Without dwelling further, Gislin turns his focus back to training. He dismisses the old man, telling him he can leave now. Watching Fergus show him so much respect makes Gislin reflect on how he's always treated those around him like enemies. But now looking back, he realizes he was just being narrow-minded. Still, he can't get distracted. There's serious work ahead. In his past life, he heard that Elena's death was orchestrated by a lord from a neighboring territory. That one act dragged Peridium into a war that ultimately led to its destruction. Her death was the first domino in the fall of his house, and now he's determined to fix everything. Starting right here, first priority. Rebuild his body time short, but if nothing else, he needs to gain control of his mana. In this world, mana is a mystical force that allows humans to surpass their limits. Most people struggle to even sense or absorb it. But for Gislin, even in the middle of chaotic battles, that part came naturally. He starts bundling the mana particles from the air, weaving them together like spinning thread. With countless battles under his belt, maybe even tens of thousands, forming a mana core is second nature to him. But if it were really that easy, he wouldn't be one of the top 7 strongest individuals in the land, drawing from a half-burned magic book and tapping into the natural mana core all humans possess. Gislin manages to forge not just a second, but a third core. He links them into a complex mesh of interconnected cores, forming a massive burst of energy. The effort takes a toll. Blood trickles from his nose and mouth, and sweat pours down his face. He's definitely hit his current limit. Back in his previous life, he had reached 5 cores. The entire technique is about generating an overwhelming force in a short time, but it guzzles mana at an insane rate. That's actually why he lost to Eden before. The guy showed up with a whole night order, while Gislin was already running on empty. In a fair one-on-one, he would have crushed him. The technique might be unstable, but it's enough for now this time. He's got a younger body, and all the time he needs to master it. And this time, Eden's head. It's his for the taking. As for the traitors backing House Delphine, the ones who helped ruin their homeland, they're going down too. A week quickly goes by, and the long-awaited day of the festival finally arrives. Gislin is all geared up, is walking through town with steady, unshakable confidence, but as he moves along, he unexpectedly spots his sister, who looks surprised to see him. She's stunned, not just because he showed up to the festival, which he's never liked, but also because he's been acting strangely lately. All she's been hearing is how he's done nothing but train non-stop for the past week. Trying to play it cool, Gislin brushes off her concern, casually, reminding her that as the heir to a knightly family, training is simply a normal part of his life. But she doesn't let it slide so easily. She hits him with a harsh reminder that he's always despised the idea of becoming Lord. That very attitude, she points out, was one of the main reasons he never got along with her father, even though her words sting a bit. She walks away with a smile, clearly happy to see him, finally stepping into the role he was meant to fill. Her comment lingers in Gislin's mind, making him realize that his actions have already started shifting how people see him, and possibly even changing the course of his future. While major events may still play out the same, the small things are becoming harder to predict. And now using his knowledge of what's to come wisely has become his responsibility. He'll need to handle every situation with care. With that in mind, he's fully prepared to confront the ones who will kill his sister. For now, he sticks by Elena's side, staying alert, but after some time, she starts getting bored and complains that this year's festival feels just as dull as all the others. Meanwhile, Gislin is lost in thought. The festival's almost over, and still nothing major has happened. This makes him wonder, could the future have changed? Simply because he stayed close to Elena. Just as that thought hits her, bodyguards appear, they suggest, taking Elena to a livelier part of the festival, so she can enjoy herself a bit more. As they start to escort her away, Gislin quickly puts the pieces together. These two, Jamal and Philip, are the trusted knights who protected Elena since childhood. In his previous life, they were said to have been killed while defending her. But now doubts start creeping in. Gislin becomes convinced it's a trap. These guys must be the traitors within the family. He follows them quietly. The spot they arrive at is completely deserted, which immediately annoys Elena. She starts complaining about how pointless this all is. As she vents, Gislin's suspicions only grow. At first glance, it's just an empty street, but the way debris and objects block every exit, that clearly shows this was prepared ahead of time. Just then he's pulled out of his thoughts, when Elena suddenly grabs his arm and starts dragging him along. Surprised by her strength, Gislin jokingly asks if she's been hitting the gym, because for a young lady, she's seriously strong. But before she can reply, Jamal steps in to stop her, and the expression on his face says it all. His intentions are far from good. Elena starts trembling, panic creeping in, as she wonders why everyone is acting so strangely. Jamal quickly apologizes for scaring her, but then his expression twists into something even more disturbing. He calmly says he just wants her to wait a little longer, claiming it's a small favor. Elena, now terrified and feeling utterly helpless, is interrupted by the arrival of someone new. A man wearing glasses steps into the scene, trailed by two of his goons. His name is Frank, and he looks quite satisfied with how well Jamal has handled things. So far, Frank then turns to Jamal, confused about why Gislin is even here. He doesn't recall ever asking for this extra baggage. Jamal tries to reassure him, saying he'll handle the kid himself, and Frank won't even have to pay. Gislin, it turns out, had blindly followed his sister, completely unaware that he was walking right into a death trap. Finally, Gislin speaks. The first thing he demands is how this traitorous bastard plans to get away with betraying the Peridium family. But the man just laughs, barely fazed. He arrogantly claims all he has to do is run far away. He's done with this broken, poverty-ridden land that's already been ravaged by barbarians. And he's not alone. Plenty of others want to leave Peridion too. But before he can finish that sentence, the main character strikes. No words, just blood spilling from his mouth as he drops, sliced clean into everyone stunned. Jamal hits the ground lifeless, and Gislin glares at the corpse. Furious, he reminds the traitor that, even if people chose to leave this land, they never sold out their own. His anger blazes as he locks eyes with the second traitor, who panics and yanks Elena closer, hoping she'll shield him from the same fate. He's dead wrong. A sword drives straight through his skull. He quivers, gasping for air as death takes him too. Now Frank's goons start having second thoughts, wondering if they even want to get involved. What throws them off even more is that this guy, supposedly the eldest son of Peridium, isn't supposed to have any real combat experience. No training, no skills. At least that's what they believed. But Frank confirms this is the eldest son. Still, He can't comprehend how this guy just wiped out 2 men, like it was nothing, and even more shocking, his attacks released with mana. Meanwhile, the girl clung to her brother, shaking with fear, but without hesitation. He knocked her out with a quick strike to the neck, telling her to get some rest. Frank, that smug bastard, thanked our guy for taking care of the 2 knights, pretending they had planned to handle them themselves. He even praised Gislin's godlike skills, and couldn't help but ask where he learned them. But Gislin wasn't having any of it. He shut them down cold, making it clear it was none of their business. He quickly sized them up, 3 of them all together, but only the one in the middle seemed to be giving off any real mana. Still, no matter who they were, Gislin was ready to end this fast. Before making his move, he demanded to know who hired them to stage the ambush. Frank, with that annoying smirk, brushed it off, acting like someone about to die didn't deserve to ask questions. Of course, Gislin knew they wouldn't give up the information so easily, but he had his own methods of making people talk. One of the goons suggested just cutting his head off, but their boss shut him down, saying he wanted him alive. He planned to break every bone in Gislin's body until he was nothing more than a cripple, writhing in pain, making sure his suffering was long and agonizing. With that, 2 of the lackeys charged, but Gislin was prepared. He suddenly pulled out a firecracker and tossed it at them. That completely threw one of the thugs off. He froze for just a second, confused as to why anyone would use something like a firecracker. But that tiny moment of hesitation was all Gislin needed. In a blink, he closed the gap and killed one of them on the spot. The second one lunged at him next, but Gislin didn't flinch. He effortlessly blocked the attack, disarmed him, and yanked the sword from his grip. Without wasting a second, he followed through and cut the guy down like it was nothing as the second lackey hit the ground. Their leader tried to pull a cheap move, sneaking up behind Gislin to land a surprise blow, but our guy's reflexes were razor sharp. He blocked the ambush like it was nothing. Frank was stunned, realizing his sneak attack had completely failed, and Gislin wasn't about to let that slide. He retaliated in an instant, his sword moving so fast that Frank could barely react. The blade slashed deep across his throat, and the pipe he'd been smoking dropped to the ground. Frank, now desperate, launched another attack, but Gislin easily blocked it again. Even Frank had to admit, without using mana to shield his neck, he would have been done for. And even Gislin had to give him some credit. He'd focused all his mana around his neck to reduce the damage. Pretty impressive, honestly. That's when Frank finally decided to get serious. Clutching his sword tightly, he hurled himself at Gislin. But just as he did, he caught a glimpse of Gislin's grin, like he'd been waiting for this moment. That split second of confusion was all it took. Gislin completely overpowered him and slammed a brutal kick straight to his face. Frank manages to land on his feet instead of crashing down and smirks confidently, claiming that with his mana levels, a move like that won't affect him. But his confidence crumbles instantly when he starts violently coughing up blood. His expression twists in complete confusion. He has no clue what just hit him. Even though his body was reinforced with dense mana, he can't believe Gislin still managed to break through it with nothing but raw skill. Meanwhile, Gislin's thoughts drift to the mystery surrounding his sister's death. He never knew who was responsible until now. And now that he does, he's ready to make this bastard pay. He warns Frank to brace himself, because things are about to get real. Then Gislin activates his third core. Frank stands there stunned, but he doesn't get the luxury of time to react. Gislin's already charging him. They clash at such insane speed that only the glowing trails of their blades are visible. Frank fights back with everything he's got, but it's clear he's falling behind. His hands are going numb, and no matter how much mana he channels, it's not enough. His sword starts to crack from the sheer pressure. He's never even heard of technique that boosts mana to this insane level, especially with such control. It's like Gislin has transformed into an entirely new person, and that new person lands a brutal strike, slashing Frank hard across the body. But Gislin isn't finished. He drives his sword deep into the man who killed his sister. Still, he doesn't let him die just yet. There are answers he wants, burning questions he needs resolved. Gritting his teeth, Ghislain demands to know who ordered the hit on Elena. But Frank isn't about to give up information so easily. He quickly whips out hidden ninja daggers, trying to go after Elena again. Before he can even move, threads block his arm in motion. Ghislain is the one controlling them. He decides to give Frank one more chance. Answer everything truthfully and he'll sheath his sword. Frank, now absolutely stunned, realizes the threads are made of mana, crafted and controlled by Ghislain himself. Ghislain knows someone at Frank's level should be able to patch himself up. Not that it'll matter if he destroys his mana core. Without hesitation, he starts channeling magic into the sword, already lodged in Frank's gut. The bastard screams as his mana core begins to break apart. It's a dangerous move. One mistake, and the mana backlash could explode the entire area. It genuinely looks like Ghislain is risking a full self-destruct. But he's no rookie, he can handle it. Even Frank can tell Ghislain isn't bluffing. When he looks into Ghislain's eyes, all he sees is a blood-soaked Reaper. Realizing he has no way out, Frank finally gives up the name Count Desmond, the real mastermind behind Elena's assassination. He further admits this entire incident was part of a bigger scheme, a setup meant to ignite a war between the Peridium and Degard families. Ghislain doesn't think highly of the name Desmond. In his past life, dirty work like this was handled by families loyal to the Dukes. If his instincts are right, Duke Delfino is likely the one pulling the strings. Still, the facts remain. Frank came here to kill his sister, so Ghislain makes sure to finish him off and take revenge for the past. Frank, in his final moments, thinks Ghislain is going back on his word. But Ghislain coldly reminds him of all the sins he's committed. He has no right to be afraid. Now, that karma is finally caught up. But then something unexpected. Frank starts laughing even as he bleeds out. He claims nothing will change. Even if Ghislain kills him, the damage is done. He's already completed his mission. With the Degard family, no matter what Ghislain does now, Peridium is doomed. War is inevitable. Ghislain swiftly covers the bastard's filthy mouth to shut him up and quietly tells him the truth. He's already died once and come back, so there's no way he's letting history repeat itself. Those were the last words Frank heard before Ghislain activated the mana core. Shattering process, the mana inside surged backward, and Ghislain redirected it into the sky, triggering a massive explosion like some warp firework. Exhausted Ghislain could barely breathe, but at least everyone who needed to be dealt with had been taken care of. Then he noticed his unconscious sister lying there, seemingly safe and peacefully asleep. Just as he let his muscles relax and close his eyes for a moment, blood suddenly spilled from his mouth, and he doubled over in pain. He thought to himself, back when he was the mercenary king, destroying 3 cores would have been easy. But now with this fragile body, it's clearly limiting him. Even so, he wasn't ready to give up. He quickly made his way to a nearby house and discovered a corpse in his previous life. Authorities have found a second body at this same location along with Elena's. And from what Frank had mentioned earlier, that body was supposedly Degard's son. There was also the escort knight who died during the event. These bodies were the reason why the Peridium family, in his past life, had assumed the Degard family was behind Elena's assassination. The moment those corpses were discovered, war had broken out this time. Ghislain made sure there would be no such evidence. He set the entire house ablaze. After that, he picked up his sister and began walking away. That's when we see some creep in a cap, lurking in the shadows, secretly watching him. Later, that same guy shows up at a shady council. Basically, all the people running the show behind the scenes, and reports that the mission failed. Naturally, the big wigs weren't happy to hear it. One of them, cloaked in a hood, blames everything on Ghislain Peridium. The moment that name comes up, the room tenses. How could some? Nobody from the north pull off something this huge. Another council member scoffs. saying Gislin's always been a worthless piece of trash, so blaming the failure on him sounds ridiculous. But the hooded guy insists. Gislin was nothing like the man they had intel on. The way he executed everything was far too skilled, almost like he'd become an entirely new person. He tries to calm him down by saying, he's already handled things with the Degard family, so sparking a territorial war won't be a problem. He pleads for one more shot to prove himself, but one of the higher UPS explodes in anger. The chaos from his failure has already caused serious problems, and now the entire council is in disarray. They all agree that the only solution is to kill Gislin. Then the top dog among them finally speaks, cutting through the noise. He asks the hooded man how he plans to handle Gislin. The reply is going to set up a duel. Make it look natural any opponent. Someone powerful when asked who this person is. The hooded guy says it's Cain Loges, a powerhouse swordsman known for his brute strength, despite being young. Cain is unmatched in physical combat. And here's the kicker, he's Gislin's cousin. That connection would make their encounter feel perfectly natural, not staged. The room falls silent as they mull over the idea. But the top guy doesn't let him off the hook so easily. He warns that if this mission fails too, there won't be another chance. Shaken, the hooded man quickly swears he'll deliver results this time.